live down here in the Bear Cave Studios for another episode of the Sports Frenzy podcast, Sold Out. With me, your host, Freddie Loso, with my co-host, the Devil's Advocate.
Couple of birthdays I wanted to point out today. The late, great Kurt Hennig, born 1958, and Umaga, born 1973.
And our other co-host, Blackbeard himself, the Encyclopedia.
And gentlemen, I have something to say to Tony Khan, Booker of the Year, at some point. And this is just, I'm trying to help him. Tony, you really need to learn how to handle criticism and feedback. Instead, you consistently make yourself look like a child. If it wasn't for Daddy's money, you wouldn't even have a wrestling company. Grow up.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's 100% right.
Khan?
I think he meant Bischoff.
Bischoff.
Oh. Oh, well, that was my rebuttal to Khan.
Want to give that a little context now?
Okay.
Those who didn't know?
Yes. So, for those of you that are not really into wrestling podcasts, besides 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, he also has a separate podcast he usually does on Thursday called Strictly Business. And he usually talks about the wrestling business, current events, and what have you. And, you know, what he sees, in his opinion, would help the business, what people are doing wrong. So it was announced in the last 24 hours or so. Actually, I'm sorry, 26 hours, because it's about 11 o'clock our time now. And this got posted around 9 o'clock yesterday, which is Wednesday. Unfortunately, this week's episode of Strictly Business with Eric Bischoff will be the last edition of the podcast. Eric's schedule is loaded these days, and for good reasons. He'll be putting his efforts into other endeavors. This was from John Alba, by the way. I'm extremely grateful to have had a chance to share a platform with Eric for the past 2 years. We are 38 years apart and have wildly different views of pro wrestling, storytelling, and even life. Yet, I think this has been one of the most fascinating parts of our dynamic and never fails to make for engaging conversation. I have always said Eric is one of the greatest television performers in wrestling history, and doing this show has been one of the most exciting challenges of my career. He has made me a better broadcaster, helped open new professional doors for me, and has been extremely gracious to me personally. I hope you'll join us this week as we bid farewell to the show. Thank you to the Ad Free Show's team, as well as for always making it featured programming, and everyone who has tuned in the past couple of years. Hopefully we've been different than the rest. So, in response to that, we had Tony Khan, the most mature person I've ever met or seen on TV. Great businessman, great mind for all businesses, NFL, EPL, and professional wrestling. His tweet back was, sunsetting this fraud of a business podcast before the new AEW media deal is a wise choice. Hashtag AEW Dynamite. To which Eric Bischoff wrote, a money mark with no talent other than spending daddy's money going all the way to Canada to draw less than 4,000 in one of the hottest pro wrestling markets in North America. Talking about wise choices? Strap in, it's going to be a fun day. Which what I opened up with was my tweet to Tony Khan. I just don't get this guy. And I know we say it over and over again. I thought he had actually been pretty quiet the last few weeks, and I thought, thank God, he's finally figured out he should keep his mouth shut and try to focus on the business. And then last night, we got, Mercedes Moné, you got Will Ospreay, you got Okada. So at least two of them are considered the greatest active wrestlers right now. Mercedes Moné, depending on who you talk to, is one of the greatest wrestling women actively right now. I don't think she's on the level of Ospreay or Okada in the ring. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. But with all this hype you've had and these three big names that really are game changers in some eyes, what is going on here? And why are you opening your mouth? I mean, last night we saw photos. There are photos out there. If you haven't seen it yet, look it up, of that arena last night. barely 4,000 people. Like the majority, I'd say 75% of that arena was empty. And I'm thinking, I'm watching Will Ospreay come out as I'm seeing the photo of his entrance, and the place is empty. And I'm thinking, is he okay with this? Is he embarrassed, or is he just like, hey, I'm just going to take my paycheck and take this guy's money, whatever he's willing to pay me, and the hell with it. I don't give a crap. I think a lot of these guys, it's probably latter at this point. Now, Rob, I know you're a big New Japan guy. Do they run smaller arenas there in between their big stadium shows? And is that what AEW really should be focusing on? Like maybe they need to get in small arenas and stop booking these huge arenas where it looks really bad when they can't fill the place?
Well, I mean, I definitely think they should be doing that. What perplexes me about AEW is if you look at the talent roster, it's amazing. It's like a who's who of Japan, of the United States, of Mexico, and they can't draw 4,000 people. And when it comes down to it, you have to think it's got to be presentation, right? Because Edge was a major draw when he was in, or I'm sorry, Adam Copeland was a major draw when he was in WWE. Sasha Banks, all these people, that you name. Will Ospreay, big name in Japan. Why is it not translating over here into the States? And it has to be presentation. I mean, in a little while, we're going to talk about Raw and how even the smallest character on that show is involved in something, and it seems like there's a lot of buzz going around. I don't know what's missing. I don't know how to fix AEW, because let's face it, WWE has The Rock and John Cena, who are crossover stars, and AEW doesn't have that, and that's okay if you don't have that. But you gotta figure out what the business model is here. You can't keep handing out these contracts and then not getting any return on investment. Why Will Ospreay and Okada should have been like the biggest thing. They should be filling arenas left and right, and they're not. And why is that? I still can't seem to figure it out. I mean, I'm excited. I think the shows are great. I think the wrestling is great. So what's the missing piece? It's got to be the presentation, right? They're not really given anything to do. They're giving away a lot of free matches on TV. So, like, why do I want to go to the arena? Why do I want to go to a pay-per-view if I'm going to see Will Ospreay on TV every week? Like, there doesn't seem to be any what's the word I'm looking for? Nothing seems special on an AEW show, because every week is the biggest week they've ever had. I mean, that Swerve match yesterday with Takeshita could have been a pay-per-view match. It was that good. That Will Ospreay match was great. Giving it away on TV every week. I don't know. I don't know I don't know if this is a sustainable model, because I would hate for AEW to fold. But I don't know what else to do, and I don't know how Scott D'Amore is still floating around not employed. I'm hoping it's his choice, because as soon as he got released by TNA, if I was Tony Khan, I would have hired him already. I would have been on the phone the next day, be like, whenever you want to start working, I want you. You've got to come here and you got to help me fix this. Because TNA was the little show that could, right? People weren't totally watching it, but they were talking about it enough, and it was starting to get a lot of momentum, and it still has some momentum. So I don't know what the business model is, and I don't know where I see AEW in 5 years. So I'll pass it over to Freddie now, because I said enough.
So,
I think.
For me, I think there's a couple things. So, one, presentation, the way they introduce these guys. Like, I think there's no hoopla around the guy. He just shows up, right? There's no like vignettes. There's no giving you a background. Like when Jericho was coming over to WWE back in the day, there was the countdown. There was, little things here and there. And it made you excited. Like, hey, who's this guy? Who's showing up? Or remember when they did the vignettes for Sting when he was showing up? Like, you knew who Sting was, but you were like, holy shit, like, Who is it? Who could it be? What's it around him? Like, there's none of that. There's no build up. It's just, hey, here's this new fucking guy, and you'll figure it out, like who he is and why to like him. And then I think too, the storytelling. There's no real, there's nothing to draw you in, as opposed to WWE that we'll get into later. Like, there's just nothing to keep your interest in the product. And then, yeah, you keep bringing in new names, but what's the payoff? There's no, I don't want to say hard sell, because the hard sell is not the way to tell it, but
things happen for no reason.
yes, that's what it
Like-
is. There's yeah.
Somebody will come in and start attacking someone, all of a sudden FTR will jump in the ring and be like, why is FTR getting involved in this?
Yeah.
Or why is the Combat Club out now? I don't, like, everybody's a tweener.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any clear roles of who's who and what's what, right? Are we cheering FTR this week? Are we cheering the Combat Club this week? Is Bryan Danielson a heel? Is he a face? What's going on? Like, there's no defined roles. And WWE, everybody's has some kind of character, and AEW, everybody's kind of the same, cut out of the same cloth, except for a few, like Tony Storm. So I mean, it can happen. You can do it, and not everybody has to be such an over-the-top character. But like, why do I care about Chris Stratlander? What is so special about her that I need to care about her?
Right.
Will Ospreay is awesome. Okay, what about him? What about him is so awesome? We haven't dug into this. I mean, him and Okada had an epic rivalry. Him and Kenny Omega, like, we're not digging into this stuff. We're not making these things personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not making it personal. We're not making it, why do I care about these? These seems like a lot of matches, but I don't know why I care about any of these matches. And if there's, I mean, they've got potential. Samoa Joe is a great character, and them using him great. Swerve is great. But that's it. It seems like they've got like this little bubble of people that are doing stuff, and then everybody else over here is kind of week to week.
And then they build up a guy like Wardlow, and then he just fucking disappears for 3 months.
Yeah, where's
And you're
Miro?
like, yeah, you're like, where did
Miro would be an awesome character right now. He's in the middle of a divorce.
Yes.
Pissed off Miro would be someone I'd want to watch.
Yeah. It'd be perfect.
Right?
Mhm.
Pissed off Miro, wanting to kill everybody, kick everybody's ass, mad at the women, mad at the men, mad at everybody would be something I'd want to see. I'd want to see if they let him just go crazy for a few weeks, and let's see what happens.
It'd be perfect. Yeah.
Right? I mean, if the three of us can book some of this shit, I don't understand how they can't.
And
And
it's
we're just
because they're
spitballing.
not out for the greater good of the product. They're out for themselves. That's what it
Well,
seems like.
I think Tony Khan's just like we said with baseball cards. You know, here's Will Ospreay and here's Jon Moxley. Let's put a match together. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why?
He's got a set of the 1990 WCW trading cards.
He's got the 61 Yankees, but they're in last place.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you have Mickey Mantle and those. You shouldn't be in last place. You should be fighting for first.
Yep.
You know, it's putting an all-star team together and then not being able to win any games. It doesn't make any sense.
It's true. Yeah. It's crazy, man.
So while we're on AEW, I know we have a few other points. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you had spoke first.
No, I did the intro.
Sorry.
No, I think this model would work if it was not a weekly show. You know, like if you're an indie company and you're doing like one-offs every month or something, then these dream matches make sense. But when you have to put out a weekly show, you got to find another way to track interest. There's only so many dream matches you could do. And as Freddie mentioned as well, I get it. They just want to be a wrestling company. That doesn't draw numbers in the U.S. It just doesn't. If you're doing a weekly show, you need some sort of storyline to capture people. I hear about all this creative freedom that a lot of these guys from WWE that came over to AEW were looking for? I don't see it. And didn't they hire someone new to be in charge of creative? What, a month and a half ago? It was like big hype. All so and so is all elite. I forget the lady's name. And honestly, I don't care who the lady is because nothing's changed. They put what did they do recently that was so new and exciting? Okada and Osprey, yeah, that's falling flat. I think they said Osprey had some of the lowest. His segments were some of the lowest rated in a long time, which is sad. I mean, I don't know jack shit about Osprey until he came to AEW. I mean, I at least find him interesting. I mean, his moveset's interesting. I love his finisher. I wish he would sell a little bit more, but I complain about that in the entire wrestling industry. So be it. Okada, I feel like that's been a letdown. Mercedes, TBD, but it sounds like she's going to be in that TBS title picture for at least through Double or Nothing. Which I guess is commendable. At least he's not rushing her to the top. You know, have her job out to Tony Storm and then have her disappear for months, because that's usually what he does with, as we call it, his shiny new toys. I don't know. I'd like to see them do better. I mean, half the time there's these great matches, as Rob says, happening every week on Dynamite. I'm gonna be honest, I'm looking at my phone half the time because I'm like, why should I care?
You know, the other thing too is all these belts they have floating around.
Mm-hmm. There's
Like,
too many.
we had the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions trying to go after the AEW. Why would they want those belts? They already have belts.
Well, AEW is supposed to be the step up, I guess.
Right, but then get rid
It's
of
like
Ring
an
of
NXT
Honor.
team going
Right,
up.
get rid of all the Ring of Honor belts then. They don't mean anything.
I'd actually say drop some of the AEW belts, but you got to keep Ring of Honor and AEW separately. There's too much mismatch there. The other thing I thought was really interesting, they were talking about Daniel Bryanson's career and he was cutting that promo and all. There was not one mention of WWE, and I thought that was very WWE of them. Let's not mention the competition. And I saw people defending them on social media. Well, they don't have rights to the WWE footage. Why would they mention WWE? You can still mention it. A. B. WWE doesn't own the rights to the photos taken by the wrestling publications like your PWIs and what have you. They've been okay mentioning it before. And just recently, WWE acknowledged this thing retired. Right, it was Cole had to move on pretty quickly. But the stuff that we used to criticize WWE for doing, now AEW's doing. And the stuff we wanted WWE to do, AEW, you know what I mean? It's like they did a flip-flop. And I don't get it.
Don't tell AEW fans about that because they'll lose their shit.
I'm more of a WWE mark. I flip out on the littlest thing with AEW, but I flip out about WWE. I feel like my opinions shit on both products in a lot of ways, you know.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, look at this week. We on Raw, we got some blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you use blood.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing when I saw it.
It makes an impact when it only happens once in a while. We should never see blood on Dynamite. Never. Maybe once, if the situation calls for it. Like if you really want to make a splash. Once. But when Moxley is cut every week, when, you know what I mean? Like you just get desensitized to it all. It doesn't mean anything. The fact, and we'll talk about Raw later, but I mean, the fact that Cody got busted open on TV, everybody was talking about it the next day because we haven't seen blood in WWE in years. And, you know, in some cases, I think it's a mistake because I think you got a cage match. Somebody's going to get cut open at some point. So I think they're maybe dialing it back a little bit to getting back towards that. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But AEW has gone completely the other direction. They're just like, you know, falling through glass and getting cuts and scrapes and this and that. And I'm like, this is a TV show. Calm down. At least save it for the pay-per-views. You know, why would you give that away for free?
At least make a reason behind it, not just because it's a fucking Dynamite match. Like, you know, like make it in a feud match. Like, you know, something like how WWE's doing it. Like, this was an attack and it felt authentic and real. And that's why it worked. It resonated.
I mean, I'm trying to think. The last time I would think maybe an AEW match needed blood was maybe like when Moxley and Kingston were going at it. Because there was a friendship there that got ruined. Right? So that's where you can see them like trying to really hurt each other. But like a regular Wednesday night match, Moxley versus somebody, and all of a sudden he's busted open. You're like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah.
We didn't need that.
Yeah.
This is unnecessary. I don't know.
Let's stick 87 wooden little spike skewers in Moxley's fucking head. Like, why?
I don't know. All right. So what else? What's next? Are we still in AEW?
It sounded like you led into WWE. Honestly.
Well, I wanted to talk about one other thing, if
Go
I could, with AEW, and then we can talk about WWE. I'm starting to get a little worried about Swerve, and I'll tell you why. He's got a lot of momentum, right? He's hot right now. He's probably the hottest wrestler there. People want him to win that title, right? So we got a pay-per-view coming up. He wins the title. Is this going to be another situation where it was all about the chase? And once he gets the belt, people kind of lose interest, or they kind of start turning on him, because they're really, I mean, he's fighting top flight opponents, right? And then he's going to get to Samoa Joe, he's going to beat him, and then who's his challenger? So I'm starting to wonder if, you know what I mean? Sometimes they do it too well, where I'm trying to think of the last time. I was trying to think of it before. I was trying to think of the last time. I think the only time I could really come up with off the top of my head was when Sting won the world title for the first time. It was all about getting there, and he fought Flair and he lost. He fought Flair, and then he finally won, and then he won the belt, and then people were like, "Wow, he can't carry this. Like, he can't do this." And remember, this is back in the 90s. I'm not talking about Sting now. I'm talking about back in the day when he's still Surfer Sting. His world title reign was a failure. I mean, they put the belt back on Flair as fast as they could. So I'm asking you guys, do you think assuming Swerve wins the belt at the next pay-per-view, do you think he can carry the company for a while? Or you think it's going to be one of those, like Hangman Page? I guess Hangman Page is a good example, right? He won the belt. People were all excited when he got there. And then when he got it, people were like, ugh. I liked it better when he was chasing than when he caught. So I'm wondering, are we getting in that scenario with Swerve? Freddie, what do you think? Do you think that's a possible scenario, or do you think I'm totally off base?
No, I think it's definitely possible. I think it all depends on who they're going to have him feud with coming out of it. Like, that's going to be the tall tale on it, on whether or not it's going to be meaningful. Because it could all be for naught, and they give him somebody stupid. It's like, oh, here's fucking Lance Archer as your next rival. And you're like, why? Who gives a shit? But I feel like that's very AEW-esque in it. And they're just going to give him, some bunch of randos that don't really make sense or further his progression as champion. Encyclopedia, what do you think?
I feel for Swerve here because, I mean, look, I've made it clear over and over again, I'm not a Swerve fan, but I think he's proven himself. I don't think you could have him face Samoa Joe again and lose, because I feel like it's the same situation with Cody. More accelerated, but same thing. If you have him lose the second time, then do we really think, he'll be a viable champion? Or is it going to be too little too late? That said, with them not doing well with attendance, and he's at the top of the card, and the ratings seem to be going down, unfortunately, I feel for him, because I think his title reign is not going to be looked at favorably. I think people are going to look at it and be like, he was champion, great, but was he really a draw? Was he a main event draw? And that's my concern for him. And this is coming from someone that's not a real fan of him. So I think the timing sucks. And especially the fact that they pretty much announced that match. It's happening at Destiny. So I think they should have waited for Double or Nothing, but even by Double or Nothing, I don't see it changing enough where I think people are going to point the finger at him. And if the ratings go down, they're going to be like, see, this guy isn't a draw. This is why he wasn't over or pushed in WWE, which I don't think is fair either. I don't know. That's my opinion. I think it's just lousy timing for him because I think you have to put the belt on him in a rematch. But I think that's going to lead to a lot of finger pointing if the ratings keep going down.
I mean, I think it comes down to what I was talking about before too, about all these tweeners. Like, who's Swerve's first challenger? I don't know, because he's not really a face and he's not really a heel. So what direction do you go in? Is it Roderick Strong? Is it Orange Cassidy? Is it Moxley? I mean, you can really go, but like, depending on the match, who's the favorite?
You might have hit the nail on the head. I think it has. I think it has to be Moxley. I was going to say Jericho, but Jericho jobs out to everybody now, so I don't think that's viable. But the other two you mentioned Roderick Strong, you mentioned Orange Cassidy. They're not main eventers. They're not proven main eventers. So that's not going to help Swerve's case either. I think you're going to have him face those upper echelon guys. Hell, and I think we're probably, of all of the same opinion that Ospreay versus Danielson, Ospreay's probably got to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
But if he didn't,
I can see them having a series of matches.
And I think
again, in the end, Ospreay I think has to win. I think you're right.
I think Ospreay has to win. But the fact of the matter is, I think Swerve getting a feud and a match with Bryan Danielson would also help him. Or I don't think Adam Copeland's the right. I mean, what's the other thing? If Swerve goes face, Christian Cage is another one. But I don't think Christian Cage is. He's a draw, but not a big enough draw to help the ratings go up. I think he's a guy that could go steady. I think they really have to be careful here because if they start trying to push too many new people that haven't been bona fide main eventers now and don't use main eventers to help these guys get over at this critical time, I think people are going to point the finger and be like, this company is an even bigger joke. Yeah. I don't know. And this is the problem with, I think it's been commendable that Jericho's been willing to put people over. But I think it's hurt in the respect that now if you wanted to help someone get to that true main event level, which is not what Jericho's been helping people do, you can't use Jericho in that role now. Jericho's really getting guys from the mid card to the upper mid card, and it's not even consistent. How many guys has Jericho jobbed to in the last year, and nothing's been done with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, look at Action Andretti, right? His career's pretty much flatlined.
I didn't even think of him, but yeah, that's probably the best example.
But is that Jericho's fault, or is that whoever's booking it?
Look, Jericho, one of the things he claimed about AEW that he loved was the creative control. Well, then he should know better. He's another one that I feel like he thinks he's bigger than he really is, and it's really sad to say because the guy's a legend. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer. I mean, I wouldn't say he's one of the greatest all times, but he's in that, top 25%, top 10% easy.
He's in top 50, mind. No doubt.
Yeah. Top 50 all time if you go by numbers. And then percentage-wise, I'd say top 10%. I don't think he's towards the top. I don't think he's like Hogan, Austin, Rock level by any means, not even close. But he's still up there, And he's another one that I feel like, unfortunately, he kind of looks like a clown. I noticed he's gotten very quiet on social media. Tony Khan, take notes,
Take many seats, Tony Khan. Many seats.
Yeah, that's just, I've given up on that.
He should just deactivate his Twitter.
Yeah, he gets quiet for a few weeks, and you start thinking maybe somebody's finally gotten to this guy, and then he just does something like he did today, or yesterday, whenever it was, and I'm just like, bro,
he's like, stop, bitch, I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, next.
So let's talk about this week's Raw. All right, so you guys saw Raw this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
An article I read that I want to paraphrase claims that this is one of the best Raws of all time, that it harkened back to the Attitude Era. And the reason why is the author gave some reasons, and one of them is that everything that happened on the show meant something. Everyone on the show had a role, even all the way down to a Candice LeRae. who was really kind of a throwaway up to a few weeks ago. Now all of a sudden she's getting some press, right, for her heel turn, and she's dragging Indy along with her, which is a good thing. And the Punk, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre interaction was great. Right, some of the lines they threw out were just like it was just a fun interaction. Like I remember I was reading about it before I watched it, and I was like, "Well, damn it, I got to go watch this now because I want to hear it delivered. I want to hear the crowd. Like it's not having the same feeling, without the people reaction." And then when Drew started throwing out some lines, and like it came off like they really don't like each other, which I thought was impressive. All right, I mean, you really felt like Punk and Rollins and McIntyre don't like each other. And if you read some of the lines they said to each other, you're like, damn. Like my favorite line of the night, I think, was when when Drew McIntyre says, you're always straight edge, and you don't do drugs, but yet you're always in rehab. And I was like, whoever wrote that was great.
Gold.
Right? I mean, that's a line that you have to stand up and clap. You have to go, that was perfect. And then you remember that Seth Rollins and Punk can deliver as well.
Yep.
So like they weren't one man didn't run over that whole segment. The three of them batted it back and forth. It was like a 3-man badminton game. They were just batting that thing back and forth. You take it. No, you take it. No, you take it. And you were just entertained by the whole thing.
What's the game on the pole? Was it tetherball?
Tetherball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they were, they were just, it's like volleyball, right? Set me up. Boom. All right. I got the shot. Me. Boom. I got the shot. It was just bad. And when Drew sat down cross-legged on the table, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like somebody was paying attention. Somebody was really paying attention and wrote some really great stuff.
And don't shoot up his kilt.
Yeah. And I don't know. It was just that segment was great, and even some of the matches. Judgment Day comes out, interferes, and you're like, okay, cool, whatever. And then when you think things can't get crazier, Rhea Ripley comes out and basically says something about Becky Lynch's kid, and Becky Lynch loses her shit. And again, you're like, if this is fake, man, this is fucked up. Like shit. Like, and then, did you see the punch that Dom took? that was a legitimate haymaker to the face.
Yeah.
Like he literally got punched in the face. And good for Dom that he didn't get knocked out, because that'd be embarrassing. But hey, all right, whatever.
You imagine he just goes stiff, like a UFC fighter, just
right. So like, whereas before I was like, all right, that match, whatever. Now I'm a little more like, okay, it's got a little personal edge to it, And then we get, Jey Uso and Shinsuke. Okay, good match. And I didn't even mention that The Rock was on the show. And that ending, I read, was described as theatric. Like it out being in the rain made it look more like a movie than a TV show. And again, I had to watch it, right? That's something I watched the entire show from beginning to the end, because what I read just captivated me. And it was great. And you start to think, well, you know what? There were some times back in the day, in the Attitude Era, where we had really compelling shows, and we had comedy, and we had serious, and we had a little bit of everything, and everybody on the show was involved in something. There were no just matches. It was all somebody in, some kind of angle. And for a show to be so close to WrestleMania to be still so good, like, I don't know about you guys, but the past few weeks I've been like, holy shit, please WrestleMania get here. I'm tired of this shit. I don't want to hear anymore. This show came on and I was like, holy shit, all right, I can wait a little longer if they're going to keep doing this. Give me another couple of weeks. So like they kind of renewed my interest. And I know Anthony's shaking his head no, so he doesn't agree with me, but I just felt like, what else could they possibly say to each other that hasn't been said? What else could they possibly do to each other that hasn't been done? And they said, Rob, shut the fuck up and watch Raw this week. we'll prove you wrong.
We
And they
got
did.
you.
Right. So Anthony, go ahead. I've said enough.
No, I was gonna say I know you're so much closer to death than we are that you're always in a hurry for everything to finish because you're afraid you're gonna miss it.
Oh yeah? Have you looked at yourself recently? Go ahead.
I look good. I look good. No, that was all I was gonna say on that. The only thing I'm gonna say, and it's the same criticism I've had with AEW, the fact that the younger guys have to get beat down by much older guys, I still find mind-boggling. Like the way The Rock destroyed Cody, I get why people loved it, and I feel like The Rock, just like Sting, ends up becoming one of these exceptions because I'm thinking this guy's like 17 years older than him. He's like in his mid-50s, and Cody's not even getting a shot in. You know?
But I feel like it's building to something as opposed to AEW.
Right. Don't you see that they're trying to set Cody up? I mean, they're going to lose. Seth Rollins and Cody are going to lose Saturday
Absolutely.
night. And it's going to be, what do you call it, rules? What are they calling it?
Bloodline rules.
Bloodline rules. They're making this almost the impossible task for Cody, and this is just part of it.
Yeah, I feel like they have to now, even though I'd rather see a clean one-on-one. I get it. I'm actually afraid that title match on night 2 is going to become such a overbooked shit show that I'm afraid it's going to take away from his moment. I hope not. I think they're going to have to be very careful. If you're going to do a bunch of run-ins, I just hope it's not where there's physical activity done to Roman or Cody to end that match. That's my only concern. Like, I know a lot of people pointed out to Steve Austin and John Cena were on the truck in the background as Rock was beating the shit out of Cody. And there was probably some foreshadowing there. If it's a case like where Cena or Austin, like for example, hit one of their finishers or both of them hit their finishers and then Cody hits Crossroads and that's how he gets the pin, then I'm going to be like, I'm sure the fans are going to pop for it. I just feel like it kind of makes Cody look weak.
What if they come out and just stop the bloodline from interfering?
That I'm okay with. And in fact, if you remember a couple months ago, I had suggested that if Rock was staying face, that could have been his role. Just cutting off Jimmy and Solo from getting involved. We're beyond that now. I think realistically, I think Cody versus Roman's going to have to happen at some point. But yeah, I totally agree. Night 1, if you're betting against Rock and Roman, I'm not going to say shame on you because they could surprise us. But I think they're trying to stack the odds so much, like you said, against Cody. If you then have him win that tag match, in some ways, and it's kind of bizarre to say it, but it's Rock and Roman are kind of, and I've been wanting to make this reference, so I'm finally going to get it out. Rock and Roman are Hogan and Mr. T. And Seth and Cody are Piper and Orndorff. I think this match is meant to be a throwback to the first WrestleMania 1 tribute to that first main event ever. And Rock is kind of badass, but he's kind of the, Hollywood actor getting in the ring.
The only possible scenario where I can see where Cody and Seth win is if Rock and Roman have some kind of disagreement and they screw up somehow and one of them gets pinned. Other than that, I don't see how Cody and Seth are going to win. And my other question to you guys is, anybody think maybe they're going to throw something at us where, since everybody again thinks Cody's going to win at WrestleMania, that he loses? Or do you think that's an impossible scenario?
I'm reading a lot of theories that that's exactly what's going to happen. I think it's a terrible idea. I don't think the fans are going to accept that. I really don't.
No, I don't either. If Cody loses again, then you might as well just get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean,
he's never going to win.
Yeah, I mean, could I see Roman beating Cody a second time? Yes. I think it would have to be like match 3 down the road. Like maybe if you did a rematch, Cody Roman 3, I wouldn't say WrestleMania 41, maybe at SummerSlam. Then I could accept it. But I think like this specific time, Cody has to win. And I think your scenario with Rock and Roman having this disagreement, I would even say have that happen in the main event on night 2. Because then the possibilities are endless. You got Cody wanting to go after Rock for all the shit he put him through and disrespecting him and disrespecting his mom. Because I think Rock handing Michelle, that bloody belt has to happen now. To real, he's been mentioning it so often. You got to go with that. But if Rock is the reason why Roman loses the belt, you also got Rock and Roman, that match that people really wanted as well. So Rock has 2 more matches.
First 2.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a couple of them floating out there. Mm-hmm. I think we see some new Bloodline members night 1.
You're dying for that.
Hey, I'm telling you, there's 2 of them floating around out there. You got Tama Tonga and you got Jacob Fatu, who are both free agents. And I think Tama Tonga already signed with WWE.
So you want to see the Bloodline continue, even if Roman's not the champion?
I don't know if you have it continue, but you got Bloodline rules. You bring in more members of the family, or at least introduce them that way. Maybe not.
For what reason?
I don't know.
Back up Roman, go after Rock for screwing up the Bloodline and what they had going. I don't think you necessarily have to have the Bloodline end now. You could end up having another match, maybe. I don't think anyone wants this to go this long, but maybe it goes all the way to Survivor Series where it's like, okay, you know what? Cody, Seth, whoever else, Rock even, we're going to War Games. We're challenging you, Bloodline. And when you lose, you got to disband once and for all. We're done with this. This has been going on for 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is.
SummerSlam main event. Cody and The Rock against Roman and Solo.
They're going to have to build Solo back up again because that poor guy's been jobbing left and right.
Yeah, I know. That's not going to happen. I just think it'd be funny.
I actually feel
he's been 0-39. I saw the stats since he beat Cena.
Yeah, that poor guy's not getting a match at WrestleMania.
Speaking of people who don't have matches at WrestleMania.
See how I let that in for you, bud?
Yeah, You had no idea. Okay. There's a lot of people who don't have matches at WrestleMania. A lot of big names. And, look, that happens every year, but I wrote down a few, and I wanted to see, number 1, how you feel about that, and number 2, if you were going to try to put them in a match, who would it be? Not that we've got any more. I don't. Have they announced the 2 cards? We have set matches for all the matches set.
Have full.
The rumor is they're going to have 14 matches total, 7 on each night, and
how many do we have so far settled?
I'll check, but I thought it was
10.
I thought it was 10. I'm checking now.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I will throw out the first name. Bianca Belair does not have a WrestleMania match.
I think I would, and I said this a while ago. I thought Bianca and Jade against the Kabuki Warriors would have been the match. I now think the way they're setting things up, it's going to be Bianca and Jade and Naomi against Dakota Kai and the Kabuki Warriors.
Yeah, I think so too.
I can see that. Yeah, that's because that match really doesn't need it. Has some build to it, right? Because Bianca's kind of been going back and forth with the Kabuki Warriors, so it's not coming out of left field.
By the way, now I can confirm it is 10 matches that have been announced so far.
So they're looking to put 4 more on the card in the next 2 weeks. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's the rumor. I don't know for sure, but that's the rumor.
All right.
Go ahead.
Bobby Lashley does not have a match.
I'm sure they giant battle royal again.
Do they even announce it as happening?
They usually do that on the SmackDown before. My personal opinion, the fact that we haven't seen Lashley and Karrion Kross go to a proper finish, and we've seen Street Profits and AOP finally go to a proper finish last week, I think that's another 6-man that we're going to get. Okay. I think that could be for the kick. Look, I get a lot of people love Lashley. I got to be honest. I don't feel like he gets a big enough reaction that
he doesn't.
Yeah.
No. And it's weird because a guy that looks like him should.
Yeah. I mean, even when he was champion.
Off the place.
But heel or face, he doesn't get that reaction.
I think it's him. He doesn't have the charisma for it. He's so generic, if that's the right word for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where MVP helped him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have. He's missing something because he looks like $1 million, but there's something missing in there, and I don't know what it is. Liv Morgan does not have a WrestleMania match.
Eh.
I don't like. I never liked her anyway, but I'm just
Nobody
saying
cares.
she. She's. I would have thought they would have put her and Nia Jax on there somewhere. And they still have some unfinished business, but
You know what? That might be the only option. I'll be honest. The only time I cared about Liv Morgan is when she had nippleitis the other night. Otherwise, I don't give a shit. I don't get her.
Yeah,
I
I
just
never
don't.
did. I never did. I don't get her character. I don't get her, period. So, yeah. Shinsuke Nakamura does not have a WrestleMania match. And he's been jobbing out so much lately. I mean, I'm not surprised.
I like him, and I feel like they rebooted him pretty nicely, but then he loses all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naomi. Well, we just talked about Naomi, so I'll pass that because I think you're right. I think it's going to be in a 6-man.
Okay, I was going to say, what are
woman.
your opinions? If you're in agreement on that, then yeah, keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dirty Dom does not have a WrestleMania match.
So, did you guys see SmackDown last week?
I did not see it. I read about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dom cost Ray a match against
Oh, that's
Santos
right.
Escobar.
I liked that. Yeah.
Which I was like, I'm watching, and it was so funny when they were like, who's the Rey Mysterio guy in the Rey Mysterio mask? And it was kind of funny. I think even Corey Graves kind of like, are you kidding? Because you could tell it was Dominic. Yeah. But why out of the blue? Unless, hear me out, as crazy as this may sound, do you think we get Ray versus Dom too? And Dom's like, no, Dad, you want me again? Fine. You beat me the last time. I want your career on the line this time. Do you think it's possible? The
with
whole
no
end
build?
game. They got the history. No. They got the history from last year, the father-son thing. And Dom for years, the entire year keeps talking about his deadbeat dad. I mean, it's been subtle. It's maybe not as been in your face as we would have liked. But I'm like, why is Rey Mysterio still wrestling? He's looked noticeably slower in my mind since that knee injury. He's not walking as well. I wonder if A, he either rushed back, and B, if he did rush back, if it was because the end game for him was the plan was always, I'm going to do right by my son on the way out, and this might be it for him.
He's going to pass the torch to Dom at Mania?
Maybe. I feel like, what has he got left to do anymore? I don't want to see the guy. The guy's been one of the greatest high flyers of all time. I don't want to see him like limping out to the ring with the way his knees, the abuse on his body. I don't want to see him like that. I mean, we're commenting now on how Jericho looks recently. I don't want to see Mysterio like that, and I'm not a Mysterio fan. I'm saying respect to the guy. The wear and tear he's put his body through, enough.
Yeah. That was my other name on here. Rey Mysterio doesn't have a WrestleMania match, so I don't know. I feel like that deserves a little more build than what it is, even though it has history.
Yeah,
if he's going to put his career on the line, you would think there'd be more to it than they're going to announce it this week on SmackDown, and that's it.
That's just my theory. I mean, we could, the way things have been going, if it wasn't for Dom, I would have visually thought you were going to see LWO against Legado del Fantasma in some way, shape, or form.
I thought they were going to do Rey and Andrade against Dom and Santos Escobar.
I tell you, when they brought back Andrade and they keep trying to say what a big name he is, I was like, nobody cares. To me, he's in that Liv Morgan category. Nobody cares. I mean, all right, some people care about Liv Morgan, but
if he disappeared tomorrow, I'd be like, whatever.
Right. You know what? Bring back Mixed Max Challenge. Let him team up with his wife there. On Facebook that nobody can will watch it anyway. Whatever.
Yeah, I just I don't get him. So I guess there's potential for a few matches still to be thrown up on Friday, right, or Monday. But those are some pretty big names. Nia Jax also could be on this list. So a bunch, and now with Sammy losing this week to Bronson Reed, I mean Bronson Reed has I wonder if they're going to make that a triple threat. because he's got a legitimate claim to the match. Or I'm surprised they didn't put Chad Gable in it and make it a 4-way, but because that'd be a way to save Gunther from getting pinned, and they could take the belt off of him. Because
that makes sense.
I'm not a big Sami Zayn guy. Never really was. So the fact that I think he's going to beat Gunther, I'm kind of upset. But then again, I'm like, I don't know who would beat Gunther at this point.
I still think you got to go back to Jey Uso there. I think he could use that run. Sammy's been an Intercontinental Champion, so I agree with you. I don't think it should be Sami. I think when it was implicated that Brock was probably involved with this poor woman and what she went through, I think they got themselves backed into a corner and didn't know how to get themselves out of it.
You think it was going to be Brock Gunther?
I mean, that was the rumor.
And who was going to win that, do you think?
I think Gunther.
Brock doesn't lose, really.
Well,
I
he's
think
lost most.
Yeah.
No, Freddie, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. I
Tell me
think
to shut up.
I think he would have done the job. I think Brock is getting a little wiser in his old age, possibly.
This is all he's worried about.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that would have been a money match. Like that would have put. I think the hard hitting that it would have been great.
If he wasn't on SmackDown, LA Knight beating Gunther, I think that would have been a big rub for him. Especially if he wasn't going to be the U.S. title picture. You could have done KO versus Gunther. They had that match. It didn't really go to a finish. Also on SmackDown.
Yeah.
But I think when they announced Jey Uso against Gunther on Raw, I was like, oh, crap. I would have rather seen that at WrestleMania. I mean,
yeah.
I'll be honest. Jey versus Jimmy, I think the only two people that give a shit about that match are Jey and Jimmy.
And
Rikishi.
I don't understand Jey Uso at all. He's the same guy. He's got no new moves. He doesn't do anything different. And they could call him a main event, and I'm like, I just don't get him. That's it, huh?
Yo, that whole crowd's doing that. It's like the new Yes.
Yeah.
Every time Pat McAfee gets up on his chair, I hope he falls. I really do. I freaking hate that guy.
Oh, I love him. I think
he's
great.
Poser. Oh, he's such a poser.
But the funny thing is,
for the brand,
how he is, he really is like that.
Ugh.
He's like the biggest geek. I love it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I see him and the corny stuff it does, I was like, I just can't see this guy in the NFL. I just can't. I get it. He was a bunter. But can you imagine if you're in a locker room with him?
If you hear the stories about him from the locker room, he was that guy in the locker room. Like what you see on TV is what you got in the locker room.
That's a shame.
I know Freddie's for the brand.
I'm for the brand.
I know I know he doesn't listen to this. My sister's boyfriend's for the brand. He's on vacation with my sister in Colorado, and he's wearing his for the brand hat everywhere he goes. And I'm just like, really, bro?
Every time he gets up in that chair, I'm like, God, I hope that chair slips out from under me, breaks his goddamn neck.
I love being.
I'm hoping he lands. I'm hoping he lands on Logan Paul, and they both hurt each other. But whatever.
I gotta sign off. I gotta go cancel the order that I'm sending to Rob's house for his birthday with the for the brand shirt and hat. He'll never talk to me again. Actually, that might be a win. Maybe
you'll probably order the wrong size, so it doesn't matter. I won't feel weird anyway.
This poor guy. I thought I feel like I'm bigger framed than him, so I always got him a size large, but he's got the big guns, so he needs the XL.
No, it's not that. The problem is when I work out, my shoulders get broader.
Exactly. I just said.
I'm not saying my arms are huge. I'm saying my wife will tell you. She bought me a custom shirt like a year ago for put under my suit. I went to put it on not too long ago, and it wouldn't fit. I kept going like this, and you can see it in the back. My back gets wider. So I can't wear.
Tell us how much you go to the gym, Rob. Tell us how swole you are.
He needs that Hulk Hogan suit, with the. You remember the Hulk Hogan tux with like the sleeves cut off?
Freddie, when I get home at night, I don't get undressed. I just tear my shirt off.
These 23-inch pythons right here, brother.
By the way, folks, I want you to watch last week's episode on YouTube. I don't think Rob has changed or showered in the last week because that's the same thing he wore last Thursday.
I'm clean as I went out tonight. I'm clean. Now that we're on YouTube, I got to clean up whether I want to or not. So, all right. So moving on. This week, in the last couple weeks, Ronda Rousey has been in the news because she has a book coming out, and she has said lots of things. She has basically badmouthed the entire WWE and their process. Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, creative, Triple H, the guy who opens the door when you get there, the guy who sells sandwiches at lunchtime, the cleaning crew, the guy who watches the windows. Everybody in WWE is a piece of shit in her mind. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, Anthony, you can go first. What do you think about what Rhonda said? What's your thoughts on her? What she said about creative, how, they didn't listen to her, and, I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm having a hard time with this because I'm a Ronda fan, but I think it's this, it's kind of like what and I'm a Punk fan, so, there's a pattern here. A lot of people have said a lot of shit about Ronda Rousey and the kind of person she is, and sometimes I thought she was misunderstood. I said the same thing about CM Punk. There's a repetitive pattern here. The same stuff people have said about her in the UFC is now same stuff that said about her in WWE. And now she's once again complaining about how things are done. I think she's just a complainer. I think she should get in bed with Tony Khan because they're both crybabies. This is tough because I like her, but yeah, I have a hard time with anybody that bashes Bruce Pritchard. They're probably right. I like the guy. It's my favorite podcast to listen to. I get disappointed when he's too busy to record an episode. But yeah, it would explain the sudden title change to Charlotte, because I remember watching it and thinking, wait, Charlotte shows up after she just had a match. Ronda just had a match already, defended the title. Charlotte comes out, challenges. Ronda accepts, and I remember Shayna Baszler was trying to talk her out of it. Ronda loses, and there was nothing after that. So the whole thing about how she didn't like the way she was being used, so she said, "Fine, give me Shayna as a tag team partner, or I'm out of here," or whatever. However she got that, I was like, that actually makes more sense, because I couldn't understand why she would do the job to Charlotte, and then there was no rematch. There was nothing. It seemed very odd to me. The stuff about Vince, I think we all think he was a piece of crap, so none of that surprises me. What I find more interesting, I think some of her timing's off. It seemed like she was complaining about creative, but then was praising Triple H. But wasn't correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Triple H still in charge and Vince had not quite pushed his way back into the company around the time she dropped the belt to Charlotte?
But Vince was still pulling the strings on certain things.
Yeah, and she thinks that Vince is still texting Bruce Pritchard to get his way. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Bruce would still be there if that was completely true. I really don't. What does he have on them now? What reason would they have to keep him if that was true? Because they're trying to push everybody else out that was part of that Vince resume if they didn't get on board. Was he smart enough to get on board? Is he still pulling strings like on Vince's behalf the way Ronda thinks? I don't think so. He might have been smart enough to be a yes man to Vince, but he's also smart enough to know when to keep, sorry, Vince, are in the rearview mirror. You know what I mean? I'm surprised Bruce is still there. And that's why I think I don't fully agree with everything she's saying, but she sees things the way she does. She does complain and whine and bitch and moan when things don't go the way she sees it, and she's very opinionated. So are a lot of people. So I don't think it's smart to completely burn that bridge, because I don't know what's left. I hope Rousey Acres is selling a lot of produce in the local farm markets, and I hope she's smart with her money investments, because as far as I'm concerned, she burned her bridge with WWE. And I don't care what people think that she'll go back to the UFC one day. What do you get out of that? She got her ass kicked her last 2 fights, and that the MMA fighters, unless you're still training and you're evolving, and she clearly didn't.
But
What-
she burned her bridges on the way at our UFC too. She talked shit about Dana White and the UFC.
I didn't watch UFC at that time, but the impression I got is they set her up for failure. They set her up with a lot of tomato cans to beat up, and then when she got in the ring with a real fighter, she got her ass whipped. Is that true?
I think that so, Freddie, you're a big MMA guy. I think you still watch it. I don't. I don't watch it like I used to. I love that run where she was going through everybody. Her first fight was, yeah, I like Liz Carmouche. She was not a top contender at that point. That was to introduce the women's division.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think what we saw with her run was similar to what we saw when the UFC first started with the men's side. It was evolving. It was still very new. So you could be one-dimensional or two-dimensional and get away with it. But by the time she lost the belt, a lot of the other women had evolved and were learning different skill sets. You know, you got to combine I think the perfect combo usually is Brazilian jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
Yeah.
She was on judo. She was totally on judo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of the people she faced initially were one-dimensional, but then she got in there with Holly Holm, and I remember that Holly Holm fight. I remember they announced it, and that night of, I was like, I just have this feeling this is not the right opponent for her. I was a little surprised Holly Holm got a title shot as quickly as she did, but I just had this feeling that she doesn't have the game to take down a Holly Holm. And look what happened.
Yeah.
And then Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like watching. That was like watching. I'm trying to think.
Tyson versus anybody in the 90s.
Yeah, I was going to go with a Brock Lesnar reference, but Brock Lesnar didn't really beat too many people in a minute.
Yeah.
Tyson did.
he might do it again on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, my feeling is, I have to again, what I originally read about this is some things that Eric Bischoff said, and I have to agree with him. And I think we've talked about this too. Is when they first brought her in, they brought her in as a face, which made no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Right? She wasn't built that way. And the other thing is, on her behalf, I don't think she ever took it seriously enough. She never tried to get any better. Her character, whether she was a face or a heel, was the same.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't understand how to sell. She didn't understand facial expressions. She didn't understand interviewing. And she made no effort to try to be any better. I don't think from the day she started to the day she left, she got one iota better.
Yeah.
You do realize you've described half the AEW roster as well.
I'm talking about Ronda Rousey right now. I just think someone of her profile coming in with such fanfare could have done so much. And instead, it was painfully obvious she was there for the money.
Yeah. She didn't give two.
And wrestling fans, say what you want about them, but if you're a phony, they're going to call you out on it. And people figured out pretty fast that she was not in it. Her heart wasn't in it. She didn't care. And no matter what WWE did to try and push her over, the baddest woman on the planet, whatever, people just didn't give a shit. And say what you want about Charlotte Flair. She's a wrestler through and through. She loves the business. Right? Naomi loves the business. A lot of the other women love the business. And why would you push someone who doesn't? No matter what their name is. Right? It doesn't make you she didn't move the needle after her debut as nearly as much as they thought. And like I said, she didn't put the effort in.
Yeah.
She alienated everyone in the locker room, so none of the women liked her. Right? We all heard about that kind of stuff, that people were turned off by her attitude.
Was that ever confirmed by anybody in the locker room, though? Because I don't remember that part.
Enough people mentioned it that there's got to be an element of it that's true. I think maybe like Natalia liked her. I think there was she had a couple people, but more often than not, you heard that she just didn't want to be part of the locker room. And wrestling is very there's a commodity, everyone's close. They're all traveling together, moving together. It's a fairly family oriented type of business. And if you're not that kind of person, you're not going to succeed. Very few people get away with that kind of stuff. So I'm not surprised. And what I am surprised is that she would burn that bridge. Because, like you said, she's burned the UFC bridge. She's burned the W. And, she could have come back and done interviews or commentary. They could have found roles for her in either avenue, whether it be UFC or WWE. And she decided she was going to burn all those bridges. So I guess she's just done. And she doesn't want to come back, and she doesn't want to, be bothered, and that's fine. The one thing I will say is Triple H has managed to make up with everyone. So I can see her at some point, commentating on a video or, doing an A&E special. So I don't think the door's closed. I think she's closed it over, but I don't think it's slammed locked and you can't get back in. But then again, I don't know her as well as you guys do. But it seems like she's one of them people, when she's done with you, she's done. So maybe that's the end. Yeah. I don't know. But it seems like it was a mistake to me. I don't know if I would have done what she's done.
Yeah, it just sounds like pettiness. Like, I am better than you, and I know more than you do when you have no fucking clue about the business. And it just comes off as sour grapes because you didn't get your way. And now you want to bash everybody on the way out. You want to light a fire. But for what? You sucked. Every time you came out, you just wanted to smile like you're a fangirl. Basically, WWE paid her for her to have the fan experience. Like, when you go to WrestleMania and you can pay for coming down the entranceway and posing in the ring, that's what they paid her for. And to have a match. Not just one, like a couple, but, in that aspect, that's what it felt like. I never was like, oh man, it's Ronda Rousey. Like, the first time she showed up, it was like, oh shit, cool. And then after that, it's like, again. Tell us more how you're the baddest and no one can beat you unless it's Amanda Nunes in UFC who fucking knocked you out in 30 seconds. Like, it's just, it was an annoying Ronda Rousey experience, and it's even worse now that she has a platform and talks about it.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. That's all. I really didn't get her from the beginning, and now I see, now with her attitude, I don't know.
All right, so
I don't completely agree with you guys, but I don't feel like getting in a debate with you. Freddie, the only thing I'll say is it was 48 seconds, not 30.
Oh, sorry.
That makes all the difference.
I think she did train. I think she did try. I think what she proved is that it's not as easy as some people think.
You can't half-ass wrestling.
On the same note, CM Punk went to UFC. He got his ass kicked twice.
I mean, I hate Logan Paul. I wish him nothing but horribleness. But you can tell he's trained. You can tell he cares.
I think she did train. I think she did care. I just think they went about it wrong.
I think
I don't think she ever cared from day one. It was a paycheck all the way.
I don't think so.
I don't. Was better than Ronda Rousey in the ring. Pat McAfee was better than Ronda Rousey in the ring.
Who was the first name?
You said?
Bad Bunny.
Oh, Bad Bunny.
Yeah, no, that's. I'll agree with that. I thought she brought a different style, which I actually enjoyed that element. But I think over time, I think her book kind of accurately depicts when she really lost interest, and I don't think it was necessarily that she lost interest from wrestling. I think she didn't like the creative she was being given, and so she got out. But
let me paint a scenario for you. She comes into WWE first day, doesn't say anything. Paul Heyman comes out behind her and announces himself as her manager, as her mouthpiece. You feel different about her at that point because now she doesn't have to talk. All she has to do is go in the ring and beat people up. She could be the female Brock version of Brock.
I think the problem is WWE hired her based on what she did for the women's division in the UFC. And I think they were looking for the same thing.
A male manager would be a bad idea, is what you're saying?
I think your idea is great, but I think it would be similar to when they brought Brock back, and at first he was by himself and he cut a few promos and they brought Heyman back immediately. I don't think Ronda didn't. I don't think it was that she didn't have the ability to cut a promo, because I remember some of her UFC smack talk, and I thought it was pretty damn good. Freddie, I think you remember, especially with Betch Correia.
Betch Correia.
The stuff that went on there.
But that was like true hatred.
Right. And I think that was the problem she struggled with tapping into. I think her wrestling was average or better than average. I thought it was a different style, so I was okay with that. Her promos and her mic work absolutely sucked, and I think it was that she had trouble getting into that proper mindset. And then as far as what she said about the creative and it not being what she envisioned it to be, so she wanted out, that's a spoiled child thing. I think that's when it came across that she really stopped caring. And the whole way everything was rushed with Shayna Baszler. You know, they won the belts. She got injured. They won the belts. She was gone. Dropped the belts pretty quickly. Had their match at SummerSlam and she was gone. I felt like that whole thing was rushed by the end of it. And I think it's because her contract was running out. And what did they do with Shayna Baszler to really capitalize off it? Nothing.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing.
So wait, here's another scenario. So Ronda comes out and Stephanie McMahon comes out behind her and becomes her mouthpiece. And Ronda only has to do is kick ass.
See,
that would be interesting. And the Heyman scenario would work too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
you want to go. I like what you said in that maybe it should be women. She was part of the women's revolution, so maybe you stick with women. So I was trying to find a woman who could actually deliver some kind of promo. So you don't. So then you can't say, "Well, Paul Heyman got her over." No, she got over with the women did it all by themselves, no man involved. So I was just trying to come up with an alternate scenario. I still think Heyman would have been the best.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think she wouldn't have been able to do it. I think the way she would come out and try to be serious, but still would crack and smile, even when she's supposed to be the badass in WWE. Yeah, she's smiling, she's high-fiving, even when she's the badass. You can't do that. You're killing your.
You can do that over time because Brock got away with that after a while.
Right, but
like the time that R-Truth came out and was trying to enter in the Royal Rumble, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And Brock was hysterical.
Oh, when Brock had the boombox.
Yeah, I mean, so you can do it over time, but initially you got to set your character up, and then you can expand on who that character is.
When she first came in, I disagree with you. I think the fans were behind her. I think especially that whole angle Ronda versus Triple H Stephanie match. Mm-hmm. I think the fans were totally behind her. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking when it turned, and this is where they fucked up, was WWE Evolution, I believe was the name of the pay-per-view, or Revolution, whatever it was.
Evolution.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Evolution because AEW wouldn't reuse a WWE name. And they put her in against Nikki Bella. And we know how Nikki Bella was loved by some, hated by the hardcores. That would have been the perfect opportunity to really... Yeah, Rob hated that main event because he hated both participants. Let's be honest here.
Basically. Rob hates women, obviously.
Jeez, I wouldn't go that
far. I don't hate you.
All that being said, the Ronda Nikki match, I think that would have been the time for her to really get into that anger. You know, you're just a freaking model. Go push your wine company and whatever else. You were never really into it. I mean, not that. And we know Nikki did try. Don't get me wrong. Nikki tried, and she had her moments. But I think I don't remember much about that feud. I don't think there was much of a feud there. I think it consisted of Nikki and Brie like double teaming her or some shit like that, and that was the setup. So I think that's when it really started to turn for her. Plus, they had Becky versus Charlotte in that last woman standing match earlier in the card.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that was part of the problem with that Evolution event. The Rousey Nikki match was not set up to really. That was pushed as the main event, and that was the focal point. And I think that's when it really turned on fans. Like, hey, this woman just showed up here, got the women's title within 3 or 4 months, and she's main eventing the first women's show. While at the time it seemed right, now in theory, I'm like, Charlotte, Becky, Sasha Banks was still around then. You could have done Trish versus somebody. I think Trish was on that card if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Trish and Lita were there too.
And you went with Ronda, who was one of the biggest women in sports at the time. And Nikki Bella, but the hardcore wrestling fans and the true WWE fans were like, wait, my opinion. Wait, these two?
Yeah, I mean, Ronda should have squashed her in like 2 seconds flat. Nobody thought that was a match.
Yeah. I think it would have been a match if Nikki was still on a full-time run. She wasn't at that point. She was a part-timer. She was barely on. It was almost like they brought her back for that show. You know, it was like when they did the first Women's Royal Rumble. They brought a bunch of people back. You know? If it came down to like if Michelle McCool was one of the final 4. You know?
Yeah.
The Undertaker makes sure that happens.
Yeah. I like Ronda Rousey. I think she did try. I just don't think she fully understood how hard it was going to be. Just like CM Punk didn't understand how hard MMA was going to be when he went over that way.
Fair enough.
You know, I know I'm being stubborn. You're not going to sell me on your side of it, but I don't expect you to come to my side either. Agree to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. You have your opinion. You're wrong, but that's okay. No, I know what you're saying. I don't know. Everybody has thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Eric Bischoff was basically saying he thought, it was wrong from the start. And like you said, she was over at that one point at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just turned.
Yeah.
And I don't think she knew how to accept that.
Yeah.
That might have been part of it. People are supposed to love me.
Yeah.
Now they don't. I don't understand why not.
And I remember, and one of the things she brought up, and I find it ironic because I think I said it on this podcast several years ago. Why didn't we see Ronda versus Becky one-on-one? Especially when you had the built-in storyline from the fact that it was a triple threat at WrestleMania 35, and she didn't actually pin Ronda. They could have made a whole storyline out of that, and instead, they went the direction they did for last year's WrestleMania.
There were missed opportunities all over the place with her. They could have done so much more. It's just between them and her, it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why she just doesn't go, you know what? It didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Things just didn't happen the way I wanted them to, and I wish everybody well. Instead, she had to throw gasoline.
That's her, unfortunately.
Which I don't understand.
I'm not trying to necessarily blame her mom, but I think a lot of that was her upbringing. It sounded like her mom was a real bitch, and like, you say your piece, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. But anyway, with that being said, that is our episode for this evening. The Sports Frenzy Pod on Twitter, The Sports Frenzy Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Go like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.